I'm Shivani Gupta. I'm obsessed with small to medium businesses growing. As business owners, we take so much risk and we want to make sure it's worth it. I believe one of the best presents you can give yourself as a business owner is to be able to learn how to scale your people, your profit, and your processes. Welcome to the Grow Your Business podcast. I am so excited today to have Kelly Jamieson, and I had an opportunity to meet Kelly when I first started out in business 20 years ago, and since then she has done some extraordinary things. In 2005, she founded Edible Blooms, which is an online retail gift destination with her sister, and I guess they were early pioneers of e-commerce in Australia. And when you fast forward 18 years, they've won a bunch of business awards, which we're going to hear about. They've also been named the #1 online gift delivery company for Australia, according to CanStar last year. Kelly's also been involved in the Telstra Business of the Year, the South Australian Businesswoman of the Year. The list goes on in terms of some of the things that Edible Blooms and Kelly has achieved. And we're going to find out a little bit about that journey in terms of from startup and into where we are. Kelly, so nice to be reconnecting with you.
Likewise, Shivani. It is gorgeous to see you too.
And tell me, obviously, it's been 18 or 20 years since we properly caught up, but that's phenomenal growth in terms of what's happened. So take us to a little bit of the journey and, give us the goods and the bads and perhaps the uglies in terms of from that early startup to some of the success that you're having now. Take us through some of that and obviously some of your personal stuff as well.
Oh, sure. So I guess when I started Edible Blooms, I was in my late 20s, and it just feels like yesterday, to be honest, in so many ways. I think, time flies, but at the same time, I think we all feel the same. And I'm sure you feel that way, Shivani, that you just, I don't know, you kind of just can't believe that sometimes when you celebrate your birthday, that's the number on the cake, but you don't feel any different. So yeah, I started Edible Blooms in my late 20s. And look, in many ways, I think being young and naive was a really good thing. So I think I didn't I was quite risky. It didn't worry me about risk because I didn't have a lot to lose. I didn't have family depending on me. I didn't have all those things that I have now. So I think that naivety and just saying yes to things were carried quite a lot in those early days. So I didn't think about what wasn't possible. I just went, well, I'll try it and see what happens. So it was a pretty fast ride those first few years that I started the business. So in the first year, we started our first office in Brisbane, actually, and I'm from Adelaide also. And so second location was Adelaide, and then we opened Melbourne and Sydney in that first 12 months. So that was a pretty rapid growth. And again, we were just doing it. We weren't really sort of sitting back and thinking about it. And it wasn't until we went I think year 4 into business, a friend of ours nominated us who was working at Telstra for the Telstra Business Awards. And honestly, we just entered for a bit of practice. We thought, oh, this will be fun. And we really weren't able to benchmark how we were going. We didn't know if what we were doing was really that great. There wasn't as much data then as there is now as well. So we entered as a bit of a practice and we were kind of taken by surprise, and we won in our home state of South Australia. We won our Small Business Award. The year before us, Cooper's Brewery had won South Australian Business of the Year. So we didn't even think we were in the running for that. And I started drinking champagne that night, celebrating winning our small category. And my now husband said to me, I have a feeling you might win that overall. And I said, oh, we won't win that. And next minute we won that. And I had no speech prepared. It was the most underprepared I've ever been because it was just that complete surprise. So I just didn't expect to win it all that night, let alone the overall award. And there was a much bigger business than us in the lineup that I just figured would win it. So, but obviously we won the judges' hearts, I think, in many ways. And we went on and we won the nationals as well, which was really great. So I think that was the first time we sat back and thought we might be doing something right. Until then, we had no idea if what we were doing was, on par with other businesses. So that was kind of interesting. And then since then, I've been married. I have 2 children. I've moved to the country. So, there's just all these different things that change. And I still work with my sister every day, which I love. So I think that's probably one of my biggest joys is being able to work with my sister, which we get along really well. And I know people that are in our team, their friends say, what's it like working for sisters? You know, do they ever argue? And they're like, no, they never argue. We honestly get along really well. We always have. So I feel very fortunate that I get to work with my sister, Abby.
That's amazing. And so when you started with Brisbane and Adelaide, how many offices are there now, Kelly?
So we have 6 now in total. So we have every major capital city of Australia. So we have Perth now as well. And we also have Auckland, New Zealand. And it's interesting. I feel like we probably have more than that because we've moved, as the business has grown, we've had to keep moving to bigger premises in each capital city. So I think in Sydney, we're in our 4th premise. But, I guess over that, we're 18 years this year in business. So, as we've grown, we've had to keep finding bigger space to fit. So, so it's been a lot of fun.
Oh, fantastic. And for the people listening, a lot of them are business owners, entrepreneurs. They're looking at growing and scaling their businesses as well. And so, along that, some people I call it the valley of death that comes in after every growth, whether it's the first office or the first employee. Take us through, do you have a process when you get challenges coming your way? Or do you have a system, or do you go and sit in a corner? What do you do when all these business challenges come your way? How do you go about managing that? Do you have a process or a system or a methodology that you use? As I said, some people have processes, other people, take time out when they're working through some of the challenges come their way. We'd love to hear what some of your processes or ways or systems are.
Look, I wouldn't say I have a formal process or anything that sophisticated. I think actually I was in a tech group when I first started the business, and I remember there was a wonderful woman in my group who had a much bigger business than mine at the time. And she said, Kelly, because I kept saying, oh, I can't wait to have a business that's as big as yours, it'll be wonderful. And she said, Kelly, just so you know, there's no less problems when you get to have a bigger businesses. There's less, but they're bigger. And because at that stage of my business, I felt like I constantly was not fighting fires, but just lots of growing pains and lots of things going on. And she said, don't worry, yours are easily fixed. The problems that I encounter, they're quite difficult. So I think that's the journey that I've certainly observed. And one of the things I do love is getting advice from people who are further in the journey than you, or have done something bigger than what you have before. I think surrounding yourself with people and having a network around you is super important. So when you have a problem, you can reach out to that network. And I think I know when people come to me asking for help, you're always quite responsive, like you want other people to do well. So first of all I think the golden rule is surrounding yourself with good people and making sure you have a good support group around you. And probably my other rule around facing challenges is I would say I generally have a fairly optimistic and positive approach to whatever comes along. So my first thought in my mind is always, there's always a solution to this. So I start with that positive mindset of that there is a solution, and that's not a deliberate thing. It's just the way I approach things. So there's always a way to solve it. It's a matter of looking at all the ways you can solve it and then deciding which is the best way forward. So I guess that's probably naturally how I would approach a problem, and making sure I reach out to that network I have around me to get the support that you need, and to also help you make the right decision. Because sometimes the challenging thing to any problem is when there's multiple ways to solve it and you don't know which of those paths to go down. So, and I think the other thing I've learned over time is, when I've, like I said, a few more candles on the birthday cake, is to pause a little bit and not rush into a decision. So just to sit with the decision, particularly if it's a larger decision you need to make, is just to sit with it a little bit, be a little bit patient, and then make a decision.
Yeah, that's great. That's really, really great tips for people that are listening into that as well. And so take us through your future aspirations for Edible Blooms. Take us through, and, whether you want to share numbers in terms of employees or revenue, whatever you want to share, but what are some of the future aspirations, whether you've done a 3-year, 5-year? And some people I'm talking to at the moment, they're like, I'm just doing not that many plans as well after the pandemic. I'm actually just looking out for the next 12 months. And so whatever that time frame is in terms of your future aspirations for business and maybe personally as well, take us through some of what you want to do, what you want to achieve, where you want to land.
Well, I've had a lot of change lately, personally, because we've lived on a farm for the last 12 years, a little town called Port Elliot. And so I've been doing the reverse commute. So I've had that. A lot of people in COVID then went to the regional areas, so they moved their life to the country, whereas that's sort of been my life for quite some time. So my husband, we run a cattle farm there, and we're right by the ocean, which is great. And so I've had the commute where I've been coming into my office 3 days a week, and I've always had 2 days a week at home, which has been great with young children. So this year we've actually just made a big change. So our children are ready to start secondary school, and my eldest is. So we've moved to the city Monday to Friday. So I've had a lot of change. So I feel like I've personal goals. It's really, for me, it's big things about family and my children and making sure they're really settled and happy. So far so good, which is great. We put a lot of thought into that move and the choices we made for our children to make the best choices for them. So that's been really exciting. So I think, from a personal perspective, that's a big priority of mine. And I think then we did our business planning, and we do it in January each year. And likewise, I really empathize with other business owners. Like, once upon a time, you could set a 5-year goal and you could know where you were heading. And I think the thing we've all come out of the pandemic with is that, really detailed 12-month plans are really the most realistic thing you can do. And even then, it's, you're really keeping an eye on it. You're changing your numbers, you're moving things. Like, where the world moves so much faster than it ever has before. So I think you can have that vision of where you're heading, but I think you'd be wasting time if you put too much detail into every step you're going to, progress to that point. So we've really set really great year-long goals. So we've got some really exciting things happening in the business this year. Our biggest thing is just probably 2 key focuses that we have as a business. And one is just the real heart of our business, which is about creating joy. So ours is more than gifting. We're really about being part of our customers' moments in life, so helping them to celebrate amazing moments. And so our strategic plan's really around how can we do that better than anyone else. So how can we make that Edible Blooms arrival smooth, amazing, like every touch point incredible. And that's probably our biggest priority for the year ahead. And the other thing that we're really focusing on is sustainability. So we've been working on that for many years in our business. So with gifting, typically there can be a lot of wastage and there can be a lot of packaging associated with it. So we've been really working on our product designs and our packaging so that it's recyclable. So one of our signature Edible Blooms bouquets now, you literally take the wraps off the outside, which you can reuse for wrapping paper, and then you just eat the bouquet and the whole thing goes in a domestic recycle bin. So that's been a really key priority, and we honestly haven't talked about it that much. We've been doing all the good in the background, and it's now a matter of making sure we're communicating that really well. But I'm pretty proud of what we've achieved, and we've worked with some other great South Australian businesses on that sustainability journey. So the Detmol Group and other amazing South Australian businesses that we've been able to partner with to create a product we're really proud of, and something that we know helps make the planet a better place. So that's a really big focus of ours for the year ahead. So I think they're quite modest goals in many ways. It's about being true and being a good business, I guess, is where we're really setting our mindset.
That's really, I love the way that you frame that in terms of, it's the joy in each other's people. It's that really that core business is so much beyond what you visually see. It's that experience or that feeling. I really love the way you did that. And obviously you've done lots of great work on the avatar and exactly what your core business is. That was really beautifully put. Kelly, I'm also really interested in, a lot of people, there's a gazillion books written on leadership. People follow certain gurus, certain books, certain philosophies. Or, you come up with your own over the period of 18 years if you're running your own business. So are there a couple for you in terms of, it may be a philosophy, it may be leadership, maybe a leadership philosophy, that are really important to you in terms of how you operate, on a day-to-day basis? Like what are some of the leadership or philosophies that you like to live by?
Well, probably the most powerful one. I think that's a really tricky one because I think I love reading and I love listening to podcasts. So that's why I love being invited onto yours. So thank you. But But I really do think, in the last, especially in the last, like recent years, it's just been such a changing space we're all working in. And I think that's been the biggest challenge for all business leaders. And so something from one of my advisors that he shared recently, when we had to make a decision that was one decision you had to sit on and really think about. It wasn't something I could quickly solve and move forward on. I had to really go deep and work out what we wanted to do with this particular part of our business. And he said, Kelly, you win or you learn. And that really stuck with me. And I thought that's so true, because I love learning, and I really get excited when I do learn new things. So if someone has a new perspective and it makes me think, and I guess that's the great thing about listening to podcasts or reading or surrounding yourself with interesting people, is their perspective. They can look at something a certain way, but that thinking can take you off on another tangent of your own. So it's actually about having that fresh thinking coming through. But winning or learning is really important, because I think otherwise, as a business owner, particularly in the last few years, people can feel like they've failed a little bit. I think there's that piece of saying, oh, well, that didn't work, and woe is me, and people can really set themselves back in that way. Whereas if you say, well, hang on, what did I learn from this experience, and what can I do to take that forward? I think that positive mindset is really critical for any business owner, because sometimes I liken being a business owner but to being one of those inflatable clowns that people punch and it gets knocked down and then it comes back up and you've got to keep smiling. So that really approach of saying, did I win or did I learn? What did I learn, and how can that help me win next time? That kind of mindset, I think, probably is the most impactful thinking process that I've had in recent times. It's really simple.
I really like that. I can now visualize driving past a car yards and seeing the little crazy, the balloon in the air, the pump sort of doing that, and I can see that as a visual as well. And Kelly, so running a business, 6 offices, 2 children, having moved back into the city. I stay away from the word balance very much these days, but what about your own wellness? Like, what do you do for your own wellness, physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever your systems are in place for that? So what do you do when you're giving so much out in terms of growing a team across a variety of, geographically and kids and moving back? How do you manage your own wellness?
Good question. Honestly, I think like a lot of us, you sort of leave yourself to last, and as leaders, we're here to serve and all those other things. So I have to say, from the thing that I let go first is exercise. So, but what I'm really good at is when I make times to do exercise with friends, I stick to it. So, so I have a Sunday walk and I have a Wednesday morning walk with groups or a friend. And they're really good. So what I'm actually keen, one of my personal goals this year is to build up a few more of those regular weekly dates so that I can be more, active regularly. And I just find those so therapeutic, because you have a chance to have a really good conversation with someone. I'm a person who I could surround myself with people 24/7. Like that gives me energy. Some people have to retreat and have their own space, whereas for me, I get energy from being around people. So that's why for me, it's working out what works for you, I guess. But I love walking and I love socializing. So if I can do the both at the same time, then I love that. And the other thing that from a mental perspective, is really being conscious of being grateful. So I, with my children each night, we have a routine where we talk about their things they're grateful for from the day. And then if they've got a lemon, so we have 2 oranges and a lemon. So they'll talk about things they're grateful. And it's really nice that creates great conversation with my children and connection each day. And it helps them to get things off their chest if there's anything worrying them from the day too, which is quite good. And I tend to find they sleep really well when they've gone through that routine every night. And so I try and do the same thing myself, where I think about grateful things before I'm going to bed. And someone said that actually can be really great for sleep. So, being grateful and having really thinking about what's made you feel happy for the day just before you go to sleep is a really terrific thing to do. So, and even having a bit of a flat time, just actually pausing and thinking about what you're grateful for makes such a difference. And honestly, Shivani, I am so grateful for the life I have. I feel very fortunate. Having said that, I've worked bloody hard to get here, so it's not by accident, but it's, but I am really appreciative of the opportunities I've had and the people that I have around me. So I will never forget that, and there will never be a day I won't be grateful for all of those things.
That's beautiful. That's really interesting. I know that I practice a gratitude journal each day for 10 minutes. But I hadn't linked that into sleep, so I'm going to have a look at that.
There is a link. There actually is. I did a sleep retreat because I'm not generally a great sleeper. I'm sort of fairly high energy, and so I like winding down. I find quite challenging, and so but there is a real connection between that and also the diet. Your diet with sleep, it's amazing. So many different things that can help you sleep better and all those things. So yeah.
To be honest with you, I used to have a saying, Kelly, that I'll sleep when I'm dead. And so according to the famous Bon Jovi, so I was like, yeah, I'll just do that whenever. And I think it was about 10 or 11 years ago when I read Thrive by Arianna Huffington. And she was talking the importance of sleep. And I was like, oh. And as I've got older, I realised, the impact it has on your productivity and who you are, but also as a partner, parent, like it's massive. So I'm really into really focusing a lot more on
someone also gave me an interesting stat one day. They said, if you only have, X number of hours, like just a few hours of sleep each day, your ability to drive is similar to a drunk driver. So like, it's quite frightening because your judgment and all those other things can be affected. Because I'm like you, I was thinking, oh, if I can give up on something, if I could sleep less, that'd be great. But it is really interesting. Sleep's incredibly important. And I certainly still probably need to do a bit more of it, but I don't think I'm drink driving anywhere. So that's a good thing.
Especially we see that with the kids, right? As mums, we see that in our kids when they don't have enough sleep and how as professional women, we just kind of keep going, right? And so I value it so much more than I ever have in my life. And so Kelly, as we finish our podcast today, people want to get in contact with you, follow you, talk about Edible Blooms. Where's the best place to find you, but also look at the business and look at some of the work that you're doing with so many creating these amazing moments for people's lives? So where do we find you? Where do we find more about Edible Blooms?
Oh, thank you. Well, I think Edible Blooms is very active on Facebook and Instagram. So you can look at us, just Edible Blooms, on both of those platforms. And me personally, I love LinkedIn. So I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit. So if anyone wants to reach out, I think it's how we reconnected, Shivani. So by all means, I'm just Kelly Jamieson on LinkedIn, and I'd love people to connect with me. And I'd love to exchange information with everyone. So thank you.
Oh, it's so wonderful having you on today. Thank you for making the time, and all the best with all the growth in the next few years. I'm Shivani Gupta, and you've been listening to the Grow Your Business podcast. I hope you got one idea that you can think about or perhaps even implement straight away in your business. Thank you for listening. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn under Ask Shivani. Remember, I call it Ask Shivani, so please send me your questions that I can address in this podcast for you. And I would also so appreciate if you went to the Apple Podcast to rate and review this podcast.